Hi, friends and family. Welcome back to another edition of the Purple Couch Podcast. Today, we're going to discuss something near and dear to my heart. How do I communicate with my child when they have no expressive language? And I state that because expressive language, meaning how do they vocalize outwardly? They may still have receptive language. That means that if you ask them to do something, they do it, but they can't turn around and acknowledge or talk to you about it. So today in this podcast, we're going to talk to families who don't have access to ABA services, for families that need to know what is ground zero, where do I start, and where does this all begin for me and my family. So come on back. We'll be here to share all of our tips and tricks with you on the Purple Couch Podcast. Hi, friends and family. Welcome back to the Purple Couch Podcast. Today, I want to tell you just my honesty. I didn't want to talk about these questions. We sat down and we talked, and I was really just completely apprehensive. I looked at these questions and was like, oh, I don't want to go down this road. The reason is because it brings up memories. It brings up sorrow for me because there was not a podcast. There wasn't easy, accessible information when my son was nonverbal, when my son wasn't able to communicate with me. That's what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to end with our last 3 questions that our parents have sent in. And then I promise parents, we do have some more emails that have come in, but we're going to try to do this in cycles. That way we can build up some questions and then answer them all for you. But today, like I said, was near and dear to my heart. How do I figure out what my child needs when they can't tell me with words or do not know how to tell me otherwise? So I'm going to allow Missy to give you some input because she's our clinical director at our Palm Bay campus. And we deal with a lot of our kids that are coming from either the public school or from other private schools that have 0 to no communication skills, meaning no expressive language. What does that mean as a parent? What we're doing here. I can't physically communicate with you using words. But Missy, they can communicate in other ways, can't they?
Definitely. So I like how you ended there that they can't communicate with words. Obviously, that's the way we're most used to communicating with others is going to be that vocal communication. But there's other forms. We have the texting, we have the emails, you can write stuff down. For little kiddos, just watching them, and they can tell you what they want. I know a good piece of advice is to leave doors open. Don't try and keep them contained in one room. Let's say it's your playroom to figure out what toys they want. Because if the toy that they want isn't in there, they're going to get up and leave and go get it. And just having the door open is a signal that, yes, it's available, you can leave, versus if it's shut, that's a signal, oh, you have to stay in this room, but what the kiddo wants is out of the room and they can't communicate. Right there is starting to build that frustration with the kiddo. And then they may engage in those maladaptive behaviors if they can't express what they want. And then you as the parent may be looking confused, like, we're in the playroom, everything you want is in here, it's all the fun stuff. But what little Timmy wants, he wants his cup of water that was left on the kitchen table.
Absolutely.
Something simple like that.
So maladaptive behavior. Can you tell our families what that means in clinical terms versus while they're tuned? If you're tuned in for this podcast, you know what a maladaptive behavior is.
Yeah. So that's going to be basically any behavior that is inappropriate to what we call a socially significant level. So it's a behavior that can impede you from doing something in society. As we know, things are changing constantly in society. Something that could have been maladaptive 20 years ago is now perfectly normal now. So it always has to be taken in context of what the society is, what the context is, what the environment is, the age of the kiddo too.
Oh, yeah.
As we know, it could be appropriate for a 2-year-old to maybe throw a tantrum versus if you have a 9-year-old doing it. Now you're
I've
looking
got
at
one
it
better for
differently.
you. Today, this morning, as we were coming in here, I had to stop at the Walgreens. And I'm waiting patiently in line. And this little girl, but old enough to be not driving, but yet in the Walgreens with a gentleman, unsupervised. But I could hear them the whole time I was shopping. Then when I got in line, I had multiple items. She only had one. She asked politely to me if she could go in front of me. Now, that was before I had heard her tell every person to shut up. I'm like, oh, well, where did the sweetness come from? You want something. But before that, I mean, in the whole store. And the wonderful cash register is a retiree, the gentleman running, and I see him all the time. And I could just see his face. And just like you were talking about what's acceptable back, 20 years ago versus what we're experiencing. Shut up. Oh, I can't stand that. The disrespect, the ugliness of that. So I told her she could get in front of me as long as she didn't say shut up for the rest of the day. And she just looked at me and then she apologized.
Good.
So as we speak about this, I think this is really key because her apology was sincere. And I'll be honest with you, if it wasn't for the apology, I thought she was just some smart-ass young teenage punk. I'm like, geez, just miserable. The energy was awful. The negativity was just feeding on it. And the disrespect to her elders that were around her was just obscene. But I called her out on it in front of everyone in a nice way. Well, guess what? That's ABA. You want something? You want to go in front of me? Okay, well, dear child, then let's shape our behavior. Let's not say shut up all day long. I can guarantee you she will remember that conversation when she gets home this evening.
Oh, yeah.
So
definitely.
I just wanted to jump in when you're talking about maladaptive behavior because we deal with it on the daily. We deal with it in our work environment. We deal with it at home environment. So when we talk about maladaptive behavior, we're not triggering to just our toddlers or a neurodiverse community. This is something we deal with on a daily through every experience we deal with people. It is a people problem.
And it is something we need to focus on as parents because in some cases, we've talked about this in previous episodes, that is the way that they're communicating, whether it's through their what we call negative vocalizations. They're screaming, they're whining, they're crying, they're hitting, they're doing those kind of things, or they're tantruming on the floor, they're flopping. That's their communication.
Absolutely.
Business. So keying in on those behaviors and why they're happening is a good way to start the communication.
Absolutely. And I love the open door because we don't really understand that because we know we can go open the door at any time. But for a child that can't use words at this point, that means access denied. So the only way that they can express a water cup is a great example is that, oh, I got all my toys, but I'm thirsty now. So I want to get up, but you closed the door on me. So I can't. And I can't tell you with my words. So I'm going to sit down and I'm either going to cry because I don't know how to express myself or I'm going to get upset. I'm going to vocalize it. I'm going to let you know I am upset. And then you as mom or dad or the caregiver are going to have to play who did it? Who's done it? Who is it?
Checking off the list of what it could be.
Absolutely.
Another thing too is just if you just take 1 hour out of the day and just purely watch what your kiddo does, just the amount of information you can pick up on their just like little shifts in body language to indicate if they do or don't want something. I mean, it's crazy to think the amount of information you could get when you purely just watch for an hour straight and just take your notes on what you see. And that you can start to see patterns and kind of habits or something like that. And you can pick up on their nonverbal forms of communication.
Absolutely. We used to have a little boy that this meant he was so happy. Everything, because he was expressing his body without using any words at all. This was his version of clapping. He was so happy, and you could tell. And the smile, his face, and on his leg. And we had to explain that to mom and dad. We see it in the classroom setting, and you can pick up that because that's what we've been trained to do. But I think so easily in all the hustle and bustle of today, parents don't stop. It's the old cliche of stop and smelling the roses. That observation of just allowing your child to be a child and watching them. When Loki was nonverbal, he was my butterfly boy. So he would jump up and down and he would flap. And that to me, it was the shell. Loki, what is that for? Why are we doing that? Why are you jumping up and down? Should I stop it? Should I not stop it? Is it appropriate? They're going to look at him. I don't want them to pick on my child. These are all things as a parent we're going through because it was behavior that was not the typical behavior. But then when I educated myself and I started realizing that or click, 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 click with pens, or the girls that do this. It was his way of releasing that energy. It was his way of letting it go. So I would not have, except for all the data that's coming into my brain. I'm just looking at this one because it's like data, data, data. And she's over here going, yes, graphic, Pam. And the only reason I bring that up is because if we don't take the time, then we really don't see the child. And perception versus reality is sometimes a night and day difference. So you may not think that your child has any expressive language, but that doesn't have to be just words. So we really need to hone in on what are they doing as a whole child. Same way that we do in the clinic or in the classroom. When the child comes into our facility, the first thing we do is a shadow day. We want to see how do they play? How do they interact with the other children? And sometimes with our kids, they want to isolate. They don't care about anybody else, anything else that's around them. So another good way to get down with that child is to get down to their level and sit down and play on the floor with them. Don't sit on the couch. Get down on their level, and you don't have to use words. How about if you try working with your child for the whole evening and you not saying anything? It's all about our perspective. Really is our perspective. And if they have siblings, you could make it one night of the week. You know, I think in our last episode, we were talking about Sassy Tina, you know, so we can bring Rick into the situation now. So Rick does not speak. Rick has no talking skills at all, no vocal expression. And I say that because it's really hard because now I sit back and I watch body language, I watch people, and they say so much more when they do not use their words. Oh, I mean, we all three, I think, sitting here going to restaurants, we sit back and you can pick up, honey, what do you think's going on at that table? Oh my goodness, we can see the body language. Or, oh, we're going to watch out for that one. You know, but your children do this too. You know, a lot of adults, they say we like to people watch. And that's what you're doing with your kid, though. People watch with your kid, you know, or maybe have the whole night up. It's Rick's night tonight in the house, so we are going to stop talking from 6 o'clock until 8 o'clock. Make it a game for the whole house. You would learn so much about the siblings, so much about your spouse, so much about your partner, and so much about your children if we take a moment. You know, Sadhguru talks about not the mind, not the body. We constantly are jabbing. Everything has vocal. Everything has sound. You know, how many times do we do our own inner peace? And you could do that at least once a week with just your household. Closing down the verbal communication and allowing the whole house to see each other, but see each other really, not with the words that they're speaking, but by their actions, by their body language. Because I really think that can tell you a lot more about a person than what they want you to hear. Don't you agree?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, what's the number one feedback people in my life tell me? I talk too much, and in a nice way, you know, because I do, and you don't stop and think, and you don't stop to observe, and you don't stop to reflect too much. And I'm a sinner of that, I guess you could say. So, you know, it is true. It's, you know, when we're parents, it's even more true. We talk too much because we're talking at the kid. We're trying to instruct, we're trying to educate, we're trying to teach. And instead, we should be stopping and listening and observing because they have to teach us.
Yes. Another thing that we have to, especially as parents, because we overtalk everything, is that when you have a child that doesn't have any expressive vocal communication, then you need to make sure that you slow down the verbal communication that you are giving. So if we're on the floor and I'm playing cars and trucks with Rick, who has no vocal expression, then I'm going to not go, oh, look at this tractor trailer that's going around the vroom, vroom, here we go. Oh, what a great tractor trailer this is. And he's going to the grocery. This is all just way too much. How about red truck up, vroom. Go back to basics and slow down. I think that's key, especially with our kids that are trying to learn to express, as we are so in a rush for everything. Just like our kids with the video games, just like our kids with the iPad, instant gratification, we want immediate response.
Yeah.
Are you not listening to me? What is going on with you?
Yeah.
I can tell you this, if you take just 30 minutes in your household and parents don't say anything for 30 minutes, I wonder how many of your family members within that household are going to ask you, Manny, are you okay?
Yep.
Missy, are you all right?
Yep.
I'm just shaking my head because I'm not giving you any verbal response, but I'm okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Because it's going to be out of the norm.
Mm-hmm.
Then you start to realize, oh my, how much do I really talk?
Mm-hmm.
How much am I the one that's expecting you to come up to my level instead of us coming down to their level?
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Meet them where they're at.
Sometimes.
That's brilliant. Do that.
Yeah.
But that's
Call
what
it
we
Shut Up
need.
Saturdays. Let's do it on Saturday.
Oh,
Yeah.
but see, oh my ears. He said, shut up. No, we're going to do quiet time.
Quiet
If we're
time.
going to do shut up, I got to tell you, this was, and especially when we're dealing with our teens and our older kids,
Fair enough.
when the hand goes up, the mouth goes shut.
Mm-hmm.
So that could just be your own in the house. No.
Yep.
And see how long you can actually do it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how do we get buy-in? You put a $5 bill on the table, and the person that doesn't talk the longest gets the $5 bill.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Man, money motivates us all. We come to work for our paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
Kids want their video games. They want candy. They want electronic time. Whatever you've got on that reinforcement. What is it? Cash is king. Isn't that what the kids say here?
King.
Cash is king.
Teenagers say that for
Exactly.
Yep.
But get the buy-in of the whole family. That's how you open those doors. That's how you get down to the level of your child that doesn't have any talkative, expressive language. And it takes a family to do it. When Loki wasn't speaking in words, he also wasn't repeating or doing imaginative play like typical developing children would do.
Mm-hmm.
Because there is no vocal expression, you are not going to find him playing with Batman and with Spider-Man and, oh, Batman's flying and he's going to save the day and Superman says, no, Venom. No, none of that happened. So, back in the wonderful day of VHS, JVC, see kids, you don't even know. Parents, I hope you're chuckling, all my Gen Xers out there. We didn't have iPhones. We didn't have these little mini computers that are, at our hip. Now you can set the iPhone, you can set the Android, the Google, whichever one you're using, and record yourself playing with the Batman, playing with the Spider-Man, and talking to them. Make your own cartoon, but using you, so that you can show them what this looks like, what play looks like, and then they see, oh, that's Mom, or that's Aunt Pam. Oh, that's Uncle Manny. And look at him. That's what I'm supposed to do? Okay. But they need to see that because our kids that are developing a little differently already have their own programs. They're already in their wonderful little world and they're playing in their mindscape. So we need to actually get them to show us their mindscape. And when we can do that, then we can play together. Mm-hmm. And I think that goes back, last episode we were talking about, the altercations between siblings and their neurodivergent brothers or sisters. Mm-hmm. Well, guys, that's just because they don't know how to express themselves. So we have to be able to get the siblings to learn how to play in the neurodivergent world because it will be much easier for that to happen than the other. Mm-hmm. And then once we get that to happen, watch out, because now there's a common ground of communication. Mm-hmm. And that will break any boundary and words won't even be necessary. So our next question was, Johnny won't sit still for 5 seconds. Mm-hmm. What do I do? Now, I got to tell you, moms and dads, the first thing I would ask you is just like I ask teachers when I'm called in to sit with parents and help be a liaison during their IEP meetings. The first thing I'll ask a teacher when she goes, well, Tyler had to be redirected multiple times. He will not sit at his desk, and I have to constantly tell him to pay attention. Well, how many times did you tell him in an hour? Oh, well, I didn't. Well, you didn't what? You didn't tell him in an hour? Well, I didn't track it. It just seems that it seems. So there we come back to the perception. Data doesn't lie. Numbers do not lie. Well, unless you're a shiesty accountant, they can be manipulated, but they don't lie. Our kids need you to stand up for them. If you do not think that Johnny can sit for 5 seconds, why are you asking Johnny to sit for 5 seconds? We need to go back to what is the purpose of you having him sit down? And is it appropriate? Is 5 seconds too long? What would you do in that situation?
Well, it's a situation that I actually live. So Johnny is not Johnny in my household. His name is Aiden. He's a 9-year-old boy who cannot sit still when he's sitting watching TV or watching a movie or eating dinner or whatever. And myself and my wife, we've had this kind of back and forth about it. And so to me, it's all context and whether it's socially significant or not. So Aiden sitting still watching a movie, who cares? Why do I care if he sits or if he fidgets and watches the movie? He's watching the movie. And if I ask Aiden, what did you like about the movie? He'll tell you the 12 things that he really appreciated about the movie, even though the whole time he's going like this, or he's going from the couch to the ottoman, or the ottoman to the floor, or the floor to this chair. Constant. So who does it bother? It bothers a few people that's sitting on the couch that like to do this when they watch a movie. So that's who it's bothering. Doesn't bother me. Right. I could care less. Go ahead, jump. I don't care. You're watching the movie. Because what he's not doing, he's not screaming, he's not hollering, he's not making loud noises. He's just kind of fidgety. He fidgets when he eats. He doesn't like do crazy things and throw food and stuff. He just likes to move around and sit and eat. So to me, it's all context and also the impact on others. So what we do, because it does bother other people, is we say, all right, how often are we giving him a little gentle prompt? Because if it's that much of a disruption, all he needs is a little bit of a prompt, a little bit of a Aiden, sit still.
Yep.
Aiden, sit still. And he'll stop. It won't be for very long. I've tracked it. It's about 20 minutes. So in about 20 minutes,
that's not bad.
Average about 20 minutes, he's starting to get a little antsy again. But that's all he needs. He just needs a little, because in his body, this doesn't bother him.
No.
He does. The only thing he knows he's doing is when he goes from one seat to another, or the floor or whatever. But outside of that, if he's just sitting watching a movie, he doesn't realize he's doing this. So that's to me, that it's a real life scenario. When he does need to sit down to focus, the only thing I care about is his homework. To sit down and actually focus. And unfortunately, at 9 years old, what I've come to learn about Aiden, my son, is he needs somebody with him to focus, even if it's just to prompt. Like, how's your homework going? I don't have to necessarily do the homework with him, but he needs somebody to just nudge him a few times.
I got an 18-year-old just like that.
Yeah. And so you know the reality. And so sometimes it's knowing the context, knowing the situation, and then making a decision. What's important for Johnny to sit for a few seconds? Why? Why is the important? So for me, the most important time is homework. So I have the 2-year-old twins that they can actually sit still for up to minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whether it's playing toys or coloring and stuff like that, right? So I'm pretty blessed about that. But we work with kids that cannot. They just, it's not in their mechanics, their brains kind of going. So we do shaping, right? So we talk about small incremental goals to get to whatever the final destination is, if it's a minute, 5 minutes, whatever. Coming to Puzzle Box, I've learned, the hidden secrets of education. It's roughly about 7 minutes is what they're looking for in kindergarten, first grade, second grade to actually attend to an activity. So we use that as kind of like a benchmark, like, let's try to get them up to 7 minutes. But what if Johnny can't do 30 seconds?
Exactly.
So we say, well, let's try for 10. We're going to try for 10. And we're going to try for 15.
Yes.
And then 20 and so on and so on.
I think that's the key, is finding out what they can do and building upon that instead of focusing on what they can't.
Yeah.
It is very key that, especially when we're dealing with the world of neurodivergence, is that we're setting our baseline up on statistics from generations ago.
Yeah.
You know, and during this podcast and those that have preceded it, our biggest focus has been on the individual learner. The child will develop at their own pace, and they develop in their own time. So what you've got to do is build them up and not break them down. So if they can sit for 5 seconds and your goal is to be able to sit down for a movie, well, guess what? We're going to celebrate 7 seconds. 7 seconds is a big, huge gain in our classroom, in our home, in our environment, and it's a goal. Guys, remember, our children are learning, and every day they're becoming a better version of themselves. So as their caregivers, as their loved ones, remember to celebrate the gains, because the things that their shortfalls are will not be those shortfalls in 6 months. Every gain builds upon itself. So again, from our home to yours, come back next week and we'll see you on the Purple Couch podcast.